My 36F husband, 42 male, is currently in Las Vegas for a national bowling tournament. He is there with his mom and her friends/folks from their bowling league. He is an avid bowler, bowls in a Tuesday night league, often in state tournaments and sometimes in national tournaments. Typically I go with and sometimes bowl myself. This year, we decided I would not go, but stay home with our 3 boys, ages 4, 8, 10, due to heat and smoke in Vegas in July. My husband and I have been married for 11 years. This is his second marriage. His first marriage failed because he walked in on his wife cheating on him with another man. I have never, not once, thought that he would ever be intimate with another woman while he was with me. He's just not that type. So, onto this trip. Typically when he goes on a trip without me, at least one a year given my job and time off requirements, he stays in a hotel room with his mom or our boys. 3 nights ago, I was on FaceTime with him while he was in his hotel room. It was really nice and he was talking about possibly taking a nap for lack of sleep. I asked if he had his room to himself, because that would have been awesome, and he said oh no? Is sharing with me. I asked him who that was, and he said something, I don't remember, aside from she. I said wait what? And then he went on to explain that he was supposed to share the room with his mom's boyfriend, but plans changed and now he is sharing the room with another woman on the trip. He told me that I played cornhole with her last month at a get-together. I reminded him who I had played cornhole with, him and a girl, but not one with the name he was giving me. I have no idea who this woman is, at which point he got very confused. He did not understand why I was upset or frustrated, so I dropped it because I did not want to deter from his time in his bowling. I know I should have asked how he would have felt if the roles were reversed, but I didn't. Partly because I didn't want to fight, we hardly ever fight, while the kids were up, and partly because I didn't want to hear him chalk it up to my imagination. I have hardly slept since that night, and my dreams have been chock full of worst-case scenarios, and still I have not really brought it up again. There have been a few occasions in which he has talked about taking naps and how lame he is in Vegas. I have mentioned a few times, sort of sarcastically as a side, that he would be having more fun if he were sharing a room with me, or if I was there instead of his present company, but he has brushed it all aside. Update 1. Okay, so I took some advice and grew a backbone. I texted him a little while ago instead of waiting until he got home. He and our boys are leaving for another trip tomorrow morning. I could not get the time off of work, so I wanted to make sure we had the conversation fully before he left again. Before I give the update, I wanted to make a couple of things clear. I do trust my husband. He has never shown he would be the kind of person to cheat, and that is not what truly concerned me. Even though I did have some pretty unpleasant dreams. My issue was that he was not upfront and honest with me. If I had done the same thing, he would have lost his mind, understandably. This is why I started the original post with he's just not that type. We do generally have great communication. The issue here is that I like to have this kind of conversation face to face rather than over the phone. It's just not something I like to hash out while we are not in the same space. Obviously, in this situation, I should have made the exception, and have now done so. Now, for the update, I texted him today to tell him that this situation has been bothering me for the last 3 days. I had questions and we needed to have this conversation. I asked Ed who the woman was, how old she was and why didn't he tell me about the situation before I found out by accident. There was a mix-up with the rooms, something about someone not going so people were shuffled. He was paired with a woman about my age. He said he didn't think it would be a big deal and didn't want to inconvenience everyone else on the trip. He also said he did not want to upset me, which is why he didn't write out tell me about it. He did tell me that I never had anything to worry about and he made sure they weren't in the room alone together aside from when they were sleeping. I know, but I really do believe him on this. I was honest with him and told him that if roles were reversed, out of respect for him, I would have called him right away to make sure he was okay with it. I told him that while I trust him implicitly, I should not have found out the way that I did. And he should not have blown off my concern. I told him that the lack of upfront communication felt suspicious, regardless of intention or what actually happened. As for not upsetting me, I told him I would have understood and not been upset if he had just been honest. He has apologized profusely. I told him next time to just communicate. He is adamant there will not be a next time. So, call me naive if you want, but I am dropping it at this point. He will be home this evening and I intend on having a nice evening with him before I don't see him again for another 2 weeks. Thank you for the advice. I cried it out when I found out her age, but getting this off my chest has been very relieving. Husband is coming home tonight and we will talk. I'm hoping it's 82-year-old grandma smile update too. I am not handling this as well as I thought I was. I had decided to let it go. I know he wasn't doing anything with this other woman. You can disagree and call me crazy if you'd like, but I do know that. However, as much as I have tried, I can't get past the fact that he made the decision to do something he knew I wouldn't be okay with, and not tell me about it. It all feels just so messed up. I have talked to a few of my coworkers. I don't have really any friends that aren't friends of his that I talk to on a regular basis, and there is no way I will talk to my family because that is a shitstorm I can't handle right now, and they are all shocked and more angry for me than I have let myself be. Most of them know him, the kind of person he is and what ended his first marriage. He used to work at the same company. We had less than 24 hours together before his mom and all three of my children took their trip to the other side of the United States. I have been sitting in my feels and will continue to do so until they get back, almost another week from now. I was on the phone with them this evening before they went to bed, and one of the first things my husband said to me was, "I'm sharing a bed with a redhead tonight." And I almost came unglued before I realized he was talking about one of our boys. We have 3 sons. After a very long pause, I said, "You better be talking about," and I was so angry I don't understand how he didn't pick up on that. Every conversation we have had has been short and to the point because I'm really just not interested in talking to him. I have been calling my oldest son, and talking with my boys instead. His mom hasn't really said much to me, which makes me think he has said something to her. Which is fine, of course. I really don't care about that. Bottom line is, I don't know what to do. It is midnight at home. I tried to go to bed 2 hours ago and just could not stop sobbing, so I got up and let it go. It felt good to get it out, but I know I need to talk to someone. I have support lines through work I can call, but won't tonight. Far too many drinks and I don't want to bring that into it as well, but I will call tomorrow. I know I should be upset and angry and not let it go. But I am afraid when I do talk to a professional they will say I'm blowing it out of proportion. I will still call, but I need to get my head straight first. He is bicycling for 7 days, over 400 miles, so as much as I want to tear him a new one right now, especially after his completely insensitive and clueless joke this evening, I have not. Because I want him home safe and sound. Regardless of my feelings in this moment, the most important thing is that my children's dad comes home safe so we can hash this out at least in the same city and not while he is 1,000 miles away. With his mom. And my children. Update 3. My family came home a day early, so I took 2 extra days off of work to see them and figure things out with my husband. After we had unloaded and put everything away, we had dinner and watched a show. After putting the boys to bed, my husband and I went to our room. It was pretty clear he thought he was going to get lucky, because he was very confused when I turned the light on. I told him that I had questions and I needed him to answer them. He was hesitant but agreed. I asked him who this woman is, how old and is she married. I still don't know who she is, but he did confirm she is younger than me, and not married. I then asked who made the decision he would be sharing a room with her. He said that his mom said it would be really great if they shared so she could spend the 3 nights with her boyfriend/not boyfriend. I asked him why he didn't tell me about it. He said he was just so tired and had had such a long day he didn't think about it. Conflicting with his earlier, "I didn't want to upset you." He said that he didn't think I would ever question his intentions, so why would he think he would have to tell me? I told him it wasn't about questioning his intentions or fidelity, it's that what they did was completely inappropriate and disrespectful to me and our marriage. And at the absolute very least, he should have sent me a quick text explaining the situation. I also told him that his mom is not always right. He apologized profusely, said he shouldn't have put his mom before me, he didn't think it would be a thing because he would never try to hurt me and he thought I knew that. All the things. And we honestly talked it out and worked through things for a solid few hours. We came to a really good place and connected for the first time in a long while. Then he went to work the next day, which hurt because I didn't really have the time to be calling in. I am severely behind at work, but I did anyway because I wanted to do the right thing for us and to take care of us. But because he just spent 2 weeks going all over the country doing something super fun and now he is super behind in his job, he couldn't afford to take any more time off. So that really hurt, but I let it go because he really was behind and I at least had the boys that I got to catch up with. That day my mom called to see what we were doing for my birthday, which was 2 days away. I had honestly forgotten about it with everything, so I told her I didn't know and asked if my husband had called her. She said he had not. So I told her I would let her know when we came up with a plan. That night, I asked him if he had a plan, and he said, "Oh, I don't know, what do you want to do?" And that really hurt, but I let it go because we have had so much going on. I told him it would be great if we had a barbecue and he invited people and got the groceries and he agreed. I specifically asked if he would call my mom. He did get some of the groceries, but not all of them. And he did surprise me with a cake. But that was it. I ended up inviting everyone last minute, having to apologize along the way, and had to go to the store twice to get the rest of the things we needed. At the party, he started showing our friends the pictures from his trip, pictures I haven't even seen yet. I was so mad, upset, frustrated. He didn't catch on. So then it came time for gifts. His was a card game and a back rub. I felt like I was just slapped in the face. To be clear, I don't place a high value on gifts. If you get me something great, if you don't, that's fine. But he didn't get me anything for Mother's Day, but I got him a whole slew of things for Father's Day for his trip and an Xbox game he wanted. I also planned each of those days by myself. And he just went to the other side of the country, and all he thought to grab for me was a card game? I didn't want to fight in front of our friends, so I let it be. I didn't really expect more than that anyway, but it still hurt. Then I went back to work and things were meh. Anything he did irritated me. Anything his mom did irritated me. I was getting so frustrated and sad and angry and just not myself. Then I had a medical issue, something that pokes its little head back up every 5 years like clockwork, but I had been ignoring because of everything going on. Come back and I went to our urgent care to take care of it. But I had to take care of all sorts of things first so that me going to the doctor didn't hamper my husband's day, so I was really irritated in the morning. It didn't help that his mom came over and I just can't handle her right now. It also didn't help that he told me that morning about all the plans he had come up with for our son's birthday in a few weeks. I was mad at myself for being upset. I should be stoked my husband is thinking about our son and wanting to give him a great birthday party, but I was so deflated and sad and angry in that moment. But he had to go to work, so I left it alone. So before I went, I sent him a text apologizing for being irritated. I told him that I'm not in a good place mentally or physically and I'm really struggling. He asked how he could help, and I responded that I really didn't know. And then I saw the doctor and he referred me to surgery. This will be the third time I have had surgery for this. I was so frustrated and sad and hurt, I decided to just put it all out there. And since he can't seem to find the time to actually talk to me, I texted him a novel, laying out everything that is on my mind. The trip, my birthday, him not taking time, my son's birthday, all of it. After an hour he had not responded, so I sent him another text saying that maybe he could just tell me I'm not crazy and we will get through this together, or something like that at least. He responded to that saying that he loves me and has lots to say but can't say it over the phone. So then I went to work and did the things. I felt a little better. He didn't discredit all of my frustrations, so things were okay. That night he called to tell me he loved me and was going to take the next day off to spend with me. It was also my day off. I was pretty darn stoked. The next day I asked him what were the things he wanted to say. And he said he didn't want to say it in front of the kids. So then that night I asked him again, and he said that we have been having such a great day, he didn't want to ruin it and me get all emotional, so he wasn't going to say it then. I felt like I had just been punched in the gut. So wait, you have been so nice since I texted you, but now I'm going to be sad and upset? What is going on? It is now the next day, and I just asked him again. He completely blew me off and went to town to pick up our son from camp. I am at a loss. I don't know what to do. Update 4. I apologize for the late update. My health took a pretty drastic turn for the worse for a minute. But no worries, all is good now. And I had a really good talk with my doctor about putting myself first, and she is getting me in touch with a counselor. Now, for the update, it's barely an update, and for that I'm sorry. When I finally did get him to tell me what he wanted to say, he ended up saying it in front of the boys anyway. He only brought up 2 things I had talked about in the novel I had sent him. The first was that I was going to look for a counselor. He said he loved that idea and that it really helped him when he was talking to one. Then he brought up that I had mentioned how much weight I have gained since the birth of our last child. He said that he still finds me crazy attractive, as should be evident by the fact that he still shows up in bed. Then he started talking about what I shouldn't be doing if I wanted to lose weight, and apologizing for the fact that he and the boys have ridiculous metabolisms and don't have to worry about it. I asked him to stop trying to give me weight loss advice. That wasn't the point of me telling him. I asked if there was anything else he wanted to say and he said no. Just those 2 things. So at this point this is where I am at. My husband did not cheat on me. I do know this is true. I am still not in a good place because of so many things happening at once, so I am seeking help now. On to second story. Declined my boss's request to shift meeting times during his 2-month leave, causing conflict as he insists on working through vacation. I work on a small team that has daily meetings at 10 a.m., usually lasting 30 to 60 minutes. I personally don't think daily meetings are even necessary, but they are my boss's way of keeping up with our work, as he rarely meets with any of us individually and he likes for us to know what everyone else is working on. My boss's work is his life, so he frequently will work in the evenings and on weekends. He recently said about Thanksgiving, "It's another day for me to get some work done." Thankfully, he does not outright pressure others to follow his example, although as you've noted before it sets a bad example coming from the boss. As you can imagine, he has built up a lot of unused vacation leave, and despite our organization's generous carryover policy, he was going to start losing hours. His solution was a 2-month trip to Asia. The problem is, even though he is going to be using leave, he is planning to keep working the entire time and attending our meetings. We already work remotely. With the time difference, our regular meeting time would be the middle of the night for him. So he proposed the times that have the best overlap between time zones: early morning here, 7 a.m., or evening, 5 to 9 p.m. I typically work an 8:30 to 5 day and have a fairly rigid schedule outside of that, with daycare drop-offs, a toddler to take care of, and regular evening activities. I responded with the following: I can make the occasional meeting outside of regular working hours, but with my schedule and childcare responsibilities I can't regularly do so. His suggestion was that he attends 2 meetings a week, one early morning and one evening, and we meet at the regular time the other days and write up a summary to send him. While I could probably make this work most of the time, it will be a real burden. It would be one thing if my boss was on business travel, or if it was just a week or 2, but he's on 2-month vacation leave. I feel like I shouldn't have to accommodate his travel on principle. How much should I push back on this? I can't force him to not work on his leave, but his choice to keep participating in our meetings is putting me in an awkward position. I can probably opt out when it is especially inconvenient, but I will feel bad about it. When I do make it to the meetings, I will feel angry that I have to be there, guilty about the extra burden it puts on my husband. Is there any way to say he can't do this while on leave? Update 1. My question was posted a couple months after I wrote in, toward the end of my boss's vacation, but I ended up doing some of what was recommended. The particular issue I wrote about, the outside of work hours meetings, ended up not being a big issue, but my boss's vacation led to all sorts of other ridiculousness. My boss left for his vacation without a specific plan in place for our meetings, and we only ended up having meetings twice, once each during the FI/RST 2 weeks. After his first request for a call, I brought up to the rest of the group that this would be challenging for me, and another colleague with kids said he also had a hard stop at 5 p.m. We reported back that we couldn't do after 5, but could do a 4 or 4:30 p.m. meeting, which my boss agreed to. I think early on in the trip he was jet lagged, but as he adjusted he wasn't as keen on getting up so early in the morning. He never ended up suggesting a 7 a.m. meeting time, so I guess he wasn't keen on staying up late either. The last I heard about having any meetings was when he emailed me asking, "Do we have a video call planned this week?" I understood this as a request to set up a meeting. However, since he wasn't direct about it, I just replied, "No, I haven't heard any plans for this week." I heard nothing back. Some of the commenters picked up on the part of the letter where I said I would feel bad about not attending meetings, not that I was worried about other consequences. My role was pretty critical to the group and my boss is non-confrontational, so I wasn't at all worried about being fired. I could have just said no to the meetings and I might have gotten a mildly worded email suggesting I try to join. I know I shouldn't have felt bad, but I would have, and it would have added an extra layer of stress that didn't need to be there. What became the real problem is the barrage of emails he'd send us each day, often treating everything as urgent whether or not it really was. This included responses on issues he didn't have the context on because he wasn't at our meetings, and that we were able to handle without him just fine, and sending the same requests separately to multiple people if they didn't get back fast enough, which once led to 3 people repeating the same task. What he lacked in management skills was just made worse when he was managing from his vacation. There were multiple deadlines during his vacation that he didn't adequately plan for or keep us informed about, which resulted in a lot of last-minute urgent requests to get things done. I knew of one deadline that would come up while he was gone, so before he left I emailed asking if he needed me to do anything to take care of it. I got no response, so I assumed it was handled. Then, the day of the deadline, the person outside our group who was submitting the project contacted me requesting documents, saying that she'd contacted my boss and hadn't heard back. Since they were due that day and my boss was asleep on the other side of the planet, I had to scramble to get them done as best I could without all of the context. After all that, he finally replied with no thank you but a complaint about how I'd worded something. I replied asking how we should be handling things like this while he's on vacation so this doesn't happen again, and he just said we all need to make sure nothing falls through the cracks, just like when he's not on vacation. Unhelpful. It might make more sense to learn that we are academia adjacent, doing research but also selling the product. My boss runs the group like an absent-minded professor, only caring about the research he finds interesting and dropping the ball on all of the other work and management the position requires. It turned out part of the reason for his trip, and the reason he was so inconveniently located for meeting times, was that he was teaching a class overseas on the topic of our research. One of the most problematic things that came up was that he sent a coworker urgent requests for material that ended up just being for the class he was teaching. My coworker obliged, but I was once again upset on principle because this was not part of our jobs at all. Sure enough, instead of being well rested when he returned, he seemed overworked from teaching a class on top of keeping up with his normal work. He confirmed that he worked every day of his leave. The commenters had some wild speculations about why my boss was taking vacation at all if he was just going to be working. I eventually learned that he was trying to do a financial trick to save the group a bit of money. Apparently the money to cover his salary on vacation days came from a different pot than his regular salary, because the vacation money had already been paid for, in a sense. He hates the part of his job where he has to actually fund the group, so he was eager to save some cash, or I suppose not incur extra costs by letting paid vacation go to waste. I only learned about this because he tried to pull it again later. About a month after returning, he had a planned surgery and was encouraged to go on FMLA until he was able to work again. Well, he wouldn't let a surgery get in the way of being able to work all the time, so he was back at our virtual meeting the very next day and even went to work for our in-person days the following week when he had told us he wouldn't be able to drive for several weeks. A week after the surgery, he sent us an email saying he was going on FMLA for his surgery so he wouldn't be allowed to go into the office, but we could still keep meeting if we kept it on the down low. This was even more concerning to me than his vacation because there are legal rules around FMLA and I wondered if I was even allowed to communicate with him during his leave. Our HR was competent enough to put an end to this by noticing that he was still working, I'm guessing by watching his email or computer activity, and saying he needed to stop or go off of FMLA. Unfortunately they communicated this poorly, by telling our group admin that she had to pass along the message. I heard from her that HR told her to threaten to fire him if he didn't stop working and said if they had to, they would threaten to fire our team if we communicated with him during his leave, or, they would tell our admin to threaten to fire us. This is when I learned that his reason for trying to take all this leave is to save money, as the FMLA pay would also have come from a different bucket than our group's direct funds. My boss was incensed, especially because it was going to take a few days for him to get a doctor's approval to go off FMLA and he couldn't be bothered to take even a few days off. He never stopped working, but I assume he ended the FMLA because I didn't hear any more about it. If his plan had gone through, he would have been on some form of leave for 5 months out of a 7-month period, all the while working every single day anyway. Bizarre. For this and a host of other issues, I started looking for a new job around the time I wrote to It took over half a year and some disappointments along the way, but I ended up getting a new position that is a better fit for my experience and a 15% raise. On top of that, the new company ran the interview process really well by standards with lots of timely communication and transparency, so I have a good feeling about how things will be run at the new job. I'd previously been surprised reading through updates at how many people say they left the job they had written in about, but now I see that when you're writing about one specific weird situation, there are probably a bunch of other